good
Still
evening.
on the way up 11 now.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Androscoggin County Budget Committee meeting for October 16th. If we could rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could do a quick roll call, that would be great. Starting with Dennis.
Dennis Dote, Assistant City Manager of Auburn.
Tim Gallant, Lewiston, Ward 7.
Leroy Walker, Ward 5 Counselor.
Susan Longchamps, Ward 2 Counselor.
David Chittum, Lewiston, Ward 6.
Paula Maselli, and I cover Lewiston, Durham, and Greene.
Lisa Chethery, Minot.
Robert Reed, Ward 7, Lewiston Citizen Representative.
Kevin Nichols, Turner.
Deirdre Smith, Lisbon. Leah Karen, Lewiston.
Thank you. Is there a motion for the meeting minutes from October 9th?
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
All right, Paula, a second.
Second.
Mr. Chittum, all in favor? Anyone opposed? And he'll abstain, okay. All right, we'll get into our review of budgets. We are only 11 tonight, so if we are going to make any changes, they either all need to pass or we need to table them for another time. We will start with the line item 15050, jail supported prisoners.
If you don't mind, could I give a brief rundown of the whole agency, and then each department head will come up, or each division, to kind of go through the particulars with you. But I figure some of you are new, some of you are old, some of you are returning. You might not get a full grasp of what the agency's about.
Sure.
So, short version, and I'll try to be brief, is there's 4 divisions within the sheriff's office. You have patrol, civil, communications, and the jail. We employ over 100 employees. There's 58 in the jail, 25 in the patrol division, 3 of which aren't union, 4 in the civil division, and 11 in communications. All except for the 3 that I identified in the patrol division are union positions. You'll find in 3 of the budgets, jail, patrol, and civil, you'll see car payments, and that's literally what they are. That seemed to cause some confusion, I think, when we're going through the budget process with the commissioners. What it is past finance payments for vehicles that are there, and anticipation of what the payments will be for vehicles coming. But it's consistent, same purpose with all 3 budgets. It's just the portion based on how often we replace the cars or the expense of the vehicles. Prior to COVID and during COVID, we did try to build up accounts to be able to get off the borrowing for cars, to buy them cash. And we're making progress. It's a goal. You know, you save pennies, pennies add up. On the patrol side, we also have contract deputies with the town of Poland that aren't in the budget because they're contracted 100% paid for by that town. We have 2 SROs, and I don't remember the numbers, but one's for the Levitt School District, one's for the Poland School District. They pay 100% of the costs of the SROs, so there's no other costs associated, to include capital benefits and everything, just on the patrol side. The Androscoggin County Jail has a capacity of 100 seats. The average daily. Currently today we have 203 in the facility, 30 are boarded out. The sheriff's office patrols over 400 square miles with a primary backup to a lot of the existing small departments and assists Lewiston and Auburn PDs regularly. Historically, we used to have call sharing agreements with the state police. That's changed. We have a resource sharing agreement, but we're the primary law enforcement agency throughout the county. They will call and assist. We do make use of their TAC team too much, much like a lot of the cities do. And other than that, I think I've given you the gist of everything I wanted to cover, and we'll go through the individual budgets. And if you have any questions about anything, I'd encourage you to ask. But Lane's here with me tonight, Captain Major Feldman, to go over the jail budget. In the jail budget, we did leave 1 position unfunded in there. When we built the budget, this was back in May or June, we had 11 vacancies out of the 58 positions. Today we only have 2, 3 if you include the unfunded position that we're going to give another year to, which is a transport deputy's position. And we just chose to do it because it didn't look likely to fill the 11 vacancies we had for the line positions, so. But where we prepared a budget like that, and obviously you've seen the cost of the jail budget and the flat funding results over the years, we felt it was pretty much the only thing we could do to help contribute for any type of savings.
So are you gonna go through these, or are we just gonna ask questions?
If you want us to go through anything in particular, we can. I think new to the budget is the boarding fees. So we actually taken a hit there, because in the past, last year we accidentally budgeted boarding fees for Penobscot County, because the year prior we had taken on boarders. So when we've had room, we've taken them in. We've taken in federal boarders, but because of our spike in the head count, we had to stop that practice. We did try to hang on to federal board as long as we could, because they pay at a much higher rate than we're paying out, so it gave us some revenue to board, but there was issue with the state and compliance and standards where we had to do something as well as keeping a facility running safely. So we budgeted $300,000 for boarders, but you also lost probably $300,000 in budgeted revenue last year. The irony to it all, in working with the Department of Corrections and some of the, I'll just say the word threats to our situation, is the state on the other side is causing the problem through the backlog in the court system. We've worked very hard and cooperatively with the law enforcement agencies throughout the county. They all worked well with us, aware of headcount issues when we didn't have money for boarders. We don't refuse prisoners. I know there was some rumors out there. I've been called by elected officials and others. We've kept an open door, because if people need to be removed from the streets, we want them in here. But there's a cost to that, and I have no issues with it, but I want to lay that out there where it's been brought up.
I do have one question. There's a new line item, or it appears to be a new line item, this Andros 457. What is that?
So what they did this year is they transferred all the expenses of the jail to show the true cost for running the jail for state purposes on reporting, what they call the crash report. 457B is in effect 401k plan. So while it's always been offered, it wasn't ever identified in this budget. It was just in the commissioner's budget. But this year, with the push to identify the true cost of operating the jail, that was put in.
Thank you.
Overtime is always a concern. I know it looks like it might be going in the right direction with the budget, but can you talk about that a bit? Is that just the unfilled positions, or?
So the way our facility is designed, and we can give any of you a tour at any time, is I know you read about things like York County and Cumberland where they can close a pod, therefore they don't have to staff it. We don't have that ability. So when we had those vacancies, where our overtime spiked was replacing, ordering people into work, and the amount of overtime grew excessively. Part of the cost of overtime, you'll see that the rise in it is wage adjustments as well, obviously affect that. We based this overtime budget request on the expenses of last year. So that's the gist of it. If I didn't answer,
It's always gonna be a target every year. We come here and we ask about it, so.
Yep, and two or 3 years ago, we kind of did some skeleton crew. So, because we were ordering people in at an excessive rate to stay over. So to do away with that, we don't replace the first one out any longer. And it's cheaper overall. But when you're not able to staff it, or when you're 11 short, we were really grasping at straws for a while. And the application uptick started in about July. And we changed our patterns as far as with applicants, where we're calling them out, like instantaneously, because you're losing them if you don't.
Thank you. I have a question about the software and hardware maintenance. There's a $14,000 big increase this year. What is that for?
It's the maintenance agreement on the records management system. So we have a new records management system coming in. Last year, you didn't have to budget because the county, through ARPA, funded a new records management system for all the law enforcement agencies within the county at a cost of $1.2 million. But that also included the first year of licensing fees.
Lisa, you got a question down here?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm I'm over here.
I'm sorry.
Sheriff, I have some questions on the revenue side, if we could look at that for a moment. The state contribution is a formula that was supposed to have been generated by the County Corrections Professional Standards Council. I could not find that formula anywhere, and I'm wondering if someone has verified that the 2.4 million, which is a 21% increase over last year, has been calculated correctly.
I believe that it's been flat funded for 4 years. I'm on the community correction, whatever you called it.
Yeah.
I've been on that for like 6 months now, and there's some standards being proposed, and I've already contacted MMA about it, as well as Representative Harrington in York County, because there'll be costs to the county. We've been flat funded, so the formula was based on bed days or state inmates. You can argue about how it was. I just know that we've received the same was it 2.4 million? Choose 2. And we got more this year. Yeah.
Last year was 1.9.
Then they would give us a supplemental funding of like $200,000 or $300,000 every year.
Okay.
So then they fixed it at that amount to do away with supplemental funding. And then we were supposed to put in a request to adjust the rate, but they had capped everybody for, I think it was 4 years, this would be the last year. And most facilities had to go over their cap, I think it was last year, right?
If you're asking why we got more this year, it's based on a formula of bed days.
Okay, and
Do I look that formula
that's
right
the
now?
state reimbursement that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the mandatory contributions. I want to talk about that in a minute, from the county towns. So I just want to verify, because I could not find that formula, and it's a relatively new, this County Corrections Professional Standards Council is only about 3 years old, I believe, and it's been charged with developing this formula. And from what I could see, that has not yet been done. Is that a work in progress?
I know that Sheriff Brackett out of Lincoln County had done a lot of work with it. DOC, if you look at the structure of this council, has unilateral ability to do what they want. So, and that's why, and there's an MMA rep on it. That's why we're kind of advocating for a change with how that is going, because they're putting standards on us that are going to cost us money. So what we've been doing is just standard work. It hasn't been focused on the funding other than submitting a funding request, but we don't know where that's going yet. And it wasn't on a formula, it was just, this is what we need for, the big one was MAT seemed to be what they were focusing on. And the reason I look at Jeff is the County Administrators Association was part of requesting the funding. You're changing the standards, requiring us to do more, costs us money, so we'd like the money in turn. Last year we asked for an additional $300,000 and didn't get it, so you kind of have to absorb the cost because you're required to do it.
Right, well, that's the problem, is that more burden is being placed on the counties, and it's not being refunded, it's not being subsidized by the state. And what that means, of course, is that every town in the county has got to come up with more money to support. So I'm concerned about that, and I would encourage you to push this organization to get that formula in place, and also, because you're on that, to have it favor Androscoggin County over the other 15 counties, if that's at all possible. The other question I have is the 5.3 million that's called mandatory contributions. That is what is collected from the towns in Androscoggin County, and it's been flat funded since the implementation of this in 2021. And I'm wondering, this may be more for the county administrator, is there a reason that that's flat funded? Because the law allows for at least a 4% increase every year. And in this year, if my calculations are correct, that number could increase by 22%. I realize that doesn't have any effect on the municipalities in Androscoggin County, because it simply is reapportioning where this money comes from. My concern is that if we flat fund it, we don't sufficiently generate the revenues from the towns to underwrite the operation of the jail. We could be looking at an increase to $6.4 million in that line, and with what I'll talk about later on in the expenditures, it's very close to possible to having this budget balance itself on the jail alone. So I'm wondering why this line has been frozen at the 5.3 instead of taking advantage of the escalator clause that's spelled out in the law.
I'll end up telling them honestly what I.
Alright, so according to the LD 1654, Amsterdam County's mandatory contribution is 5.3. And like any law, it's very confusing, but in 2D on page 5, and I have copies of this law if you want it, it does say that beginning July 1st, 2026, counties may increase. So and there's a lot more jibber jabber in here, but it sounds to me and to other counties, because I've talked to them, and the auditors, that until 2026, you needed to go through a special process to increase the cap.
Okay, we're looking at different laws then, and perhaps rather than take the committee's time, if the administrator and you and I could take a look at, I have copies of the laws that I reviewed, and they don't make any reference to freezing this until 2026. So, okay.
That would repeal, replaced by this. Because on my understanding, under this one, we couldn't do any increases at all for 2026. So many counties have voted to go over the cap.
Okay, this,
We'll be asking people to do that with the jail budget.
yeah, this was a 2021 law, and
This was approved by the governor May 5th, 2022.
We have copies of this as well, but I believe the law you speak of, you'll see. Yeah, but I'll provide this to you after the
okay, all right, we can chat about that. Thank you.
Thank you. What's that? Oh,
Yeah, if someone can just let the rest of us know once you, how, just either email or bring it to the next meeting, put it in the minute. Appreciate it.
go ahead, Mr. Brown.
You mentioned that you were short-staffed and you hired individuals, obviously. How is it that the health, dental, and main retirement dropped so significantly if you brought on more people? I mean, it's, you were at $1,900,000, you flatlined 800 and 480. So I'm just curious to where those numbers came from if you brought on more staff. It would seem to me those would have risen, not fallen.
The numbers we get are based on past year's expenses, but numbers like that are provided.
And employees are also given choices of which plans to get, that contributing to employees taking a plan that's less expensive for them in the county.
Do they have the option that if they have a significant other that has a better insurance policy, they can opt out?
Yes.
We have buyouts.
Right, the buyouts as well. Okay, thank you.
It's a tier plan
And they
now.
have options for as far as what plans are available, two of which I don't understand something about, you get money back at the end of the year.
FSAs and stuff.
All right.
There's more options now for employees to choose.
Just keep in mind, when we built this budget in May and June, we were 11, 12 people short, because we're on a fiscal year from, July 1 to June 30.
Right.
Our hiring really didn't start until after we built this budget, so we had to go off the numbers that we had last year from the finance office. We did not anticipate the hiring of 11 staff members in such a short time that we were able to do it.
So that's why I have a concern. If you hired after your initial budget or your original numbers are put together, there's an extreme possibility these numbers could jump by 25, 30%. In reality, and where we can get that money from if it's not covered now or looked at.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be 25 to 30%, but we haven't gotten next year's numbers yet. We feel pretty confident in the numbers we put through, though.
Okay.
Are there any more questions?
I'd like to look at the expenditure lines, and some of these may sound picky, but as I heard the administrator, or actually Sheriff Sampson, I heard you say that, the pennies add up. So I'm looking particularly at a historical. Now, since you're on a county year, the numbers that are listed for 2024 actual are, that's the full year expense, is that right? Okay. So I'm looking at, for example, meals. And historically, you spend under $200, and yet it continues to be a $1,000 request.
So
Can you give us a line number, please? The line?
Sure. Oh, not the mic, the line number.
The line number.
Okay, yes, we're looking at,
62015.
Thank you.
So part of meal reimbursements is when our transport goes across state, people out there, people in prison, a lot of that wasn't available and there was still COVID operations. The courts are now just getting back into normal operations. We're like the slowest county to do it, not by county or by court. The other thing is training. We weren't able to send people to in-service training, which would usually cover the cost of their meals, or the academy, because we have nowhere to go. So now we're getting those expenses that come back. Because once fully staffed, we always encourage staff to go to in-service training, for career development, things like that. Part of that is reimbursement for meals. In the past, academy training was available for in-service, where they provide meals as part of tuition. Nowadays, it's through Dirigo or different places throughout the state. There's meals reimbursements in the contract if they're so far from the return street location.
it sounds to me though, based on, it sounds to me then, based on that, that a lot of my suggestions here will be answered with the same, well, we've just come out of the COVID situation and we're now going to be looking at full funding. Do you suspect, and I'm looking at...
I would say for training, yes, because with 11 people going to the academy, if that's in there, that's going to be an expense. I will say, with all the divisions, the training prices have gone up quite a bit. We didn't really make adjustments for that. And again, when we built this budget, we had to kind of go conservatively because we realized the big jump, which is why we left, one position unfunded and things like that. But police academy costs are going up, corrections academy costs have gone up. Tuition into in-service training has gone up. I mean, when you used to go $300 for, it's now $600. So with training or things like that, mile reimbursements, I don't know what they are anymore. We try to buy vehicles for people who go to training, so we save there.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead and ask your questions. I can tell you what it falls in.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me as though many of the notes that I made here will be answered by that same response. Printing and reproducing, reproduction, $3,500 is budgeted, and the most you've spent, well, 2 years ago you spent 25, and last year was 13. And I'm wondering if there could be some money taken out of that line. You haven't spent anything on statutes and reference books, well, $60 this year. Those are available online, and I'm not familiar enough with the jail operation to know what other books you might need, but statutes obviously are available online, although my earlier comment suggests that maybe the statutes that are online are not current, which is another issue. So can you talk about the $150 for statutes and reference books?
It's for the law library and for booking, because we don't always have internet to look up.
We
That's
keep
not-
copies in the admissions areas. When law enforcement comes in, sometimes you look stuff up, we provide the book for them.
I'm sorry?
When law enforcement comes in to bring prisoners into the booking area, we've always kept books on hand so they can look up what they're charging and where they refer to that for their paperwork. So we do keep those hard books on hand.
The statute books that
Statute
we
books.
we keep them here.
And they're used.
This isn't the full two shelf?
No, these are like the 29A to 38.
Okay, just the appropriate titles. Okay, all right.
That's what those 150s for. We do use them. They don't just get thrown in the drawer.
Good, okay. Line 64055 on page 3, sewerage and water. That really shouldn't be affected. As far as I know, there have been no rate increases on those. And the amounts that have been requested by you are considerably in excess of what's been spent in the past.
I'm holding double the amount of inmates that the building was plumbed for. So the amount of flushes, the amount of tap water, everything like that is gone up significantly, because I don't have 80 inmates dealing with flushing toilets. I have 200.
Did you have 80 inmates last year and the year before?
During COVID, we were down as low as 70-something.
Okay,
So,
okay.
and I do actually think, the rate is different for the usage, just like you'll notice with 774 Center Street, we're charging a different rate. But sometime in June, before we actually sat down with the administrator, wrote the budget, we did a last overhaul of what were the expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked with the treasurer's office on some of them required significant increases based on what we spent in the past. I don't remember which ones, but there was one that was off by like $200,000. So we caught as many as we could, you know, maybe not with the medical insurance that was, you know, mentioned earlier, but a lot of what we put in here was based on the actual expenses of the year prior. And our headcount started rising to go over capacity last November, October. And usually you start seeing a decline in December, January, and that's when we knew it's not going down. This is not normal.
Okay.
To the sheriff's point, we looked at these numbers right before we the budget.
Yeah.
In June, so we were looking at May, you know, that's 6-7 months before to come up with these numbers. You know, it's basically based on usage multiplied by 12.
Okay. Line 64, 135, service contracts. And I confess that I did not look at the backup on this particular line, but what are those service contracts, and they are considerably in excess of what's been spent in the prior 2 years?
We have, excuse me, we have service contracts with a pest control company that they have to come in because under the DOC standards, I need to have that taken care of as many as 4 times a year, and I have to be able to call them in whenever there might be a problem or an issue. One of the biggest things that we have right now is we're going to a new jail management system that matches up with all of the area police departments. Everybody from Lisbon to Mechanic Falls to Auburn to Lewiston. So those service contracts and the upgrade that we're having in that jail management system is much more expensive. We haven't had any real updates or any improvements to our system now in a number of years, so unfortunately the cost is there now.
And there was some things that if we didn't renew a service contract, like the body scanner or print tracks, they wouldn't service it anymore. So there was, when we bought the body scanner, that came with a 3-year or 5-year service contract. We had to re-up it, and the body scanner cost us $160,000. It's a very valuable piece of equipment. So there's some equipment we've added more cameras in the facility, which has, in our minds, reduced assaults, or for the incident we had the other day, provided exactly what had happened. But with all of these things, it increases the service. We have them all the sidewalks.
Vendors, more and more vendors now are requiring you to buy a service contract, then they'll come and work on your stuff. If you don't buy the contract, then maybe people can work on your stuff.
Maybe, and if we do, it's gonna cost you a lot.
It will not, but
Yeah.
just for the maybe.
I have to pay a subscription to get the windshield wipers to work on my car, so I understand how this works. Okay, thank you. Those are my substantive questions.
I have 2 more. Going back to the unemployment compensation, which is 52025, is there a way to make that something that gets carried over every year instead of taxing us 10,000 and not using it every year for that line item? We haven't used any money in there for 2 years. It's 52025.
Correct.
The only time I think we've used it that I can recall, because it recently happened, is we terminated an employee, and
Understood, but is there a way, instead of taxing us every year, to put it in a fund that's in a reserve thing? Yeah, reserve, that's what I meant. Because that would make much more sense instead of putting that in undesignated every year if it doesn't get used.
Good point.
there's 11 of you make it out.
All right. Guess what I'm gonna do, all right.
We can make a
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
And then my last question too is on building and building improvements. There was a $25,000 budget last year and only 5,000 used, and another request for 25. So did we not spend all of our money last year?
We were fortunate enough to use ARPA money last year to try to offset those costs. That money's gone now, so, again, with the age of the building and everything that we have, we'll use every dollar of that.
But we taxed the taxpayers $20,000 that didn't get used last year.
That might have been a coding issue, because we actually had to hold off on some things. Under the jail, we had a sewer, was it a sewer line?
Yeah.
We had a sewer line break, that was a significant expense, and we also had the Sally Port floor rot out, and had a hole in it, so that had to be repaired too. So there was some vacancies in the finance office, and there was questions about how some things were coded and paid for.
Those projects went into
So I don't know.
Don't blame it on.
So what is on the plan for this year?
So given the choice to use ARPA this year, use that money.
You can't, there's no, well, there's none left for this, next
I
year.
mean, it's your last year.
Yeah.
Next year.
Right.
Next year, the booking floor needs to be resurfaced, as well as we have drainage issues with some of these floors that the building is 30-something years old. The floor, it's that stuff. Epoxy. We looked to do that last year, and then we got the estimate, and it was quite a bit higher than.
Any, oh, go ahead, Mr. Reed.
So, other than the overtime, there's a heartburn in the budget. What are the things that are gonna keep you up hoping you don't really spend more than you think? Where's the worry, or where did you not get enough in the budget that you think you need?
In this budget?
Yeah.
We're actually crossing our fingers this budget passes as proposed. It's probably the first budget in a number of years that we're not looking at the figures you guys brought up in the past years and then trying to figure out. We had a cook in March call us up that was in a panic because she thought she was out of money for food. So this budget as proposed will allow us, it should allow us to operate fully for the year and have enough budgeted in case, unless inflation continues to hit us the way it has. We'll be able to meet the contract demands with staff. I mean, everything in the jail, food for the inmates, lights, hot water, water, sewer, it's all expenses that, wages, medical insurance, everything tied to it. If we had a wish list, it would probably be something to do with the elevator and the floorings, but we realize what it is as far as staffing and levels and everything like that. There's nothing that we were asking for that was elevated through the commissioner's budget process, and it was nothing that we proposed or decided to wait a year on. But thank you for asking.
You asked me which lines.
Yeah, I'm just, I deal with medical budgets, large medical institutions, so where's that heartburn on that one line that you're going, if we hit this really bad and we have a bad year, this is the one that's gonna.
We met this morning, and our two biggest issues that you can't, it's a roll of the dice every year, are pharmaceuticals and hospital stays. But you kind of got to base it on an average, so we did enough to give us some. We've had years where we had a guy going over for sickle cell, and that cost us an outrageous fortune. And he was a state, anyway. So things like that concern you, but you could budget $500,000 and it might not be enough for that year, you know what I'm saying? So,
thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Glenn?
Thank you. You have 0 for training supplies. What would you consider a training supply?
I think that was one of those lines from the DOC. Right, Jim? It was, yeah.
We had some lines like, that we discovered were duplicate lines, like you'd sit here and you'd question a maintenance line, and then you'd question something else that might be maintenance. And we realized our budget was the same thing. We were copying off the DOC format, because prior to 2015, the jail operated under the Board of Corrections, so our budgets were like that. And although we worked with the Treasurer's Office to correct and eliminate lines, every year we discover still duplicate lines or lines that don't really mean anything to us. So this is something we can look at again. As far as training supplies go, we have CPR dolls and things like that. I wouldn't know what.
Well, that's why I was wondering, because having a son who's a police officer who does training, so I was just curious, because I know they have to replace items that you have to train people on here locally in-house, and those to me would fall under training supplies. And when I see 0, I'm wondering how we, find the money if that's the case, or maybe your equipment's in great shape and this is a year you don't need anything, but it's been 0 forever. Last year. Didn't work out. All right, good, thank you.
That those supplies you speak of would be in the training and education budget.
Oh, so you switch it over to there.
I've been putting the date in that line's done.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the budget as stated. with putting that $10,000 in reserve, which was line item 52025.
And I will second that motion.
All in favor? Okay, anybody opposed? No opposed? Okay. All right, that's it.
Madam Chair, would that be a time, appropriate time to vote for the budget committee to hold the cap or not, if I do this?
What was that, I'm sorry?
To have the budget committee vote to go over the cap, that's set by this.
Okay. I have to read that?
No, I'm just doing what you're asking for, yeah.
Alright, so I'm just reading.
No, it's basically asking the budget committee for the approval.
Looks like we're cruising for an 11% increase in the county budget this year.
Okay, I'll move with that. Okay, we've been asked to make a motion, I'm gonna make a motion on the following. A record of the vote of the County Budget Committee on the request for approval of the increase in the base assessment limit, including, if the vote was not unanimous, a record of why a member of the Budget Committee voted against making the request. Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Paula, all in favor of the cap? Anybody opposed? Mr. Glant, sorry, Mr. Chittum?
I'm sorry, I don't understand what this is all about.
Jeff, yes, can you give us, I see some confused look, so.
With the budget as it sets, we'll have to go over the base assessment cap to pass the budget. And to go over that cap, we're going to require to do legislation. Part of that process is the commissioners voted to go over the cap. We'd ask the budget committee to go over the cap. If the budget as is, we need to do so.
Just the jail budget?
Just the jail budget.
Just the jail budget, okay,
And then from that point on, we'll continue on the process.
okay.
Sorry if I wasn't clear.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I did-
This is new, this is, we've not done this
So sorry.
before.
So the county commissioners have already approved going over the cap,
Yes, sir.
but they need our yea or nay.
The law requires your yea or nay first to continue the process.
Okay. All right, so based on our motion and our second, we had,
A question.
Go ahead, sorry.
What is the cap and how much are we going over it?
It's 5.3 million for the county side of the cap.
So, and you'll see that in the revenue, that's that 5.3 million. And the number that we need in order for the jail to break even would be $6,510,013. So it would be increasing it by $1,210,013.
Okay, this is what we were talking about earlier, and I'm not prepared to make I can abstain from this, but this is what I wanted to talk to you about, my understanding of what the law says and what you've said. So if you want to take the vote, by all means, go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul.
Does this have anything to do with the move to the new building in Lewiston? No?
No, nothing at all.
This is
The
strictly jail.
Jail.
Entirely the jail operations and money to fund the jail.
So we had a motion on the floor, we had a second, we had 11 in favor and 1 abstain? One opposed.
Actually, I'm going to vote against it, and I will explain why, because the law requires me to.
Go ahead.
Because I still think there's a discrepancy in what I'm seeing on the Maine State website statutes, which I assume are current, and what I'm being told by the administrator and the treasurer. And I'm not doubting you at all, but I do want to get that resolved. So I think there's a misunderstanding as to what that law means, and so that's why I'm voting against overriding the cap.
I'd like to make a motion a friendly amendment, I guess would be at this point, to table this until we have those answers.
I second
There's
that.
enough confusion and
Yes.
the difference on what's right. I want everybody comfortable with the process.
Yes.
All right, so we have Mr. Reed made a motion, Mr. Walker seconded it. Is all in favor of tabling it? Right, that probably makes better sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can I keep going?
Can't really table it after we've moved it, but that's all right.
I have just copy. Thank you.
Came prepared.
Okay,
Thank
so
you. Yeah. Yeah, they're no long enough to know that's gonna be a stickler.
So next up is the
Thanks,
Center
Clarice.
Street
What do we got
budget.
here? Ah, okay.
So the, that will also provide police public information monitors to support this.
This is the question.
So the Center Street property, the county purchased it with the SAR funds to, the intent was to move public safety division over there. And what you have before you is just the operating budget. We keep the building heated minimally, we have internet connectivity in there for the security alarms and to get alerts for the temperature drops. Because we've had pipes burst, so we get the alert, we go, we figure out what's going on. We also have the fire panel inspection type stuff. We've had some repairs, and that's pretty much what makes it up. Lawn care, we do go out every year. We've been fortunate there, where the first year we paid like $7,500 for lawn care. That's just it. The county maintenance facilities division plows it for us. There's no work being done to it. I was hoping, and at some point through the bonding process, if the commissioners choose to develop the property, they'll have to go out to bond. That's going to require the budget committee to call back in to let them know to have a public hearing with the budget committee. I was kind of hoping that they would maybe do that while you guys are here, but I haven't heard anything of it. Because as it goes, regardless of what they do to develop that property, there's going to have to be some sort of bonding involved. And by bonding, I mean it's going to have to be public approval. So like Auburn did, I don't know if Lewiston did it in their process, but if the voters don't support any type of bonding to develop the property, then you're back to the drawing board.
Go ahead, Mr. Reed.
Just the elephant in the room on this one. If the rental income last year was budgeted at 48, and you only brought in 5,500, so you're budgeting 48 again?
I don't get the revenues from it. This year we had a vacancy, and by that, it's being, the property management company's handling it. But you know how electricity is supposed to switch over to the power? It didn't. Pipes burst, a lot of damage, as well as the damage up. So this year our revenues are down from it. Last year, there was an agreement made with somebody, it's long-term tenants, thankfully, but the agreement was made, I guess, when they moved in, when Evergreen owned it, that when they had kids, that heat pumps would be put in the second floor because there was no heat source. So that was done last year. We had expenses like the $10,000 worth of damage when the pipes burst, things like, putting it in perspective time-wise, I can't do it. So as far as the revenues, a lot of the things involving the property, rather than him billing us, we just have him deduct it from the rent. That affects the revenue. So while we're getting on average $2,000 per unit, any fees associated with the properties come out of that.
So the rental income is not really down, it's more that it's just uninhabitable for some period of time?
Yeah, this year in particular, but as far as what you're seeing for last year's revenue, the treasurer's office handles the revenue, and we've just always handled the expenses with the accounts for the fire system, water, sewer, things of that. The houses pay all of their own utilities. They pay, when the county bought the property, the prior one was paying water and sewer, so I changed that right away. We wanted pretty much nothing to do with it, other than use the revenues to offset expenses for this building, which has been done somehow, but we've gone.
I have a few questions on a couple line items. Propane and gas, you used about 4,500, but you've got budgeted 7,000. Is that really going to be that much?
Some of this has been kind of a guesstimate because we had no real. So 1 year, we tried to keep as low as
And
And
then,
we're cutting into during the winter, the summertime, obviously, there's really nothing going on. We actually shut off the hot water tank, so that doesn't use up any propane as well, it is natural gas.
We actually, because the sewage bill always, I don't understand why there's, we actually shut off the water on all the toilets too manually, so, other than, we've let, them use it for Cobra training, which is the decontamination and all that. We let them use it regularly for canine training. Auburn Fire's used it, once for the roof stuff they do. I don't mean that insultingly, I just don't know what the training is. It's just pretty much for any public safety, we've allowed them to use the facility because might as well get something out of it right now.
and the service contracts, what's the increase there this year?
But it's the service contract,
What's the increase for?
it was Cunningham Security, that's both for burglar and fire alarm system. High Tech Fire comes in and maintains our sprinkler system, and then,
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Gland?
Professional fees, what are professional fees?
Professional fees, last year we budgeted to have Harriman do a concept draft for the whole thing, so architects, engineers, and I don't know if you're looking at the notes from it because the notes are long. But so this year we left in the same amount, which the commissioners already reduced to $16,800 for 35. In dealing with Harriman, you're gonna have to do, I'll call it marketing or PR to educate people on what you're trying to do. And other than that, if we need to enter another agreement with Harriman for something else or lawyers for something like with the bonding questions, because it's counties don't borrow often, but my hope would be the professional services would be to put out information throughout Scott County. They're gonna have to have not only the public hearing with the commissioners, but in the 7 different districts. That's our opportunity to let people know what the actual intent is, what they'll be looking at, much like Auburn did with their drawing of, big.
Right.
There's cost to that. When Harriman saw the original, they said, you'll be able to do a lot of different things. Well, it's hard for us to outreach because we don't get pressed with every event that was in Auburn typically does. And we're reaching out to more rural communities, and there's a lot of confusion, bad information about what the actual intent is. But the hope is to have some form of marketing to educate the public, so we get support on that.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chittin?
Thank you. Are sewer and water flipped in this? Typically, sewage costs more than water, and yet, in the other budgets, in the jail budget and in my budget, sewer costs more than water, and yet in this one, it's flipped over. And that doesn't matter because the dollars are going to be the same. I just wondered if that was the case.
It could have been flipped over because we're French, but it's on the same bill. And I'm looking at a property now where
Don't say that.
public water, but you have to get your own septic. I'm like, good, sewage costs the most. I mean,
Right. Your service contracts add up to $7,000, but there's an $8,000 budgeted.
It could be, like I said, this year we got lucky in the mowing, and it could be anticipation of those things changing. Because the contracts are what the contracts are. And I know sometimes that involves some repairs. Like this year, they wanted us to replace a fire panel, but we held off against it because we couldn't get the building right.
Well, and that you said the contracts are what the contracts are, and I've got 2,000, 1,000, and 4,000 listed in your summary.
4,000, I do anticipate that the mowing may go up a little bit, because he's kind of held 4,000 this year and last year. We went from 7,500 to 4. We keep our fingers crossed if he keeps doing it. He is talking about retiring. So, that was about right there.
Okay, I thought that lot was almost all parking lot.
No, it's actually, there's a lot
Is
of
there?
land that
Out in the backside.
the backside and the actually the building side and the
Yeah.
side.
And we try to keep the, as best we can at looking okay, so.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. Because originally we debated, and then there was a couple of us said, hey, it'll be good exercise mowing it until we looked at it and said,
Thank you.
And just to clarify, the 4,000 that's in the notes is based on 2024, pretty much that.
Yes.
That's what it was for 2024.
Yes.
And so 2024 and 2023 was 4,000. 2022 was like $7,500. So
we actually looked at what would the cost be if we just bought a mower, somebody helps to do it, then you gotta maintain it, gas and all that stuff.
And then workman's comp if there's an issue, and it's.
I'm thinking 3 years ago, the gas prices were pretty outrageous, so.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I'm gonna get a new job.
I would make a motion to accept as presented.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Reed and Kevin on the second, all in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries.
Did you get all those hands quick enough?
Sorry, that was an easy one. All right, the next one is the civil process.
So civil, like I said, it's made up of 4 people. I forgot to mention that. I think of the staffing rundown. The reserve civil process, we have 3 civil process service, 3 cars, so most of it is the wages. They do bring in revenue. There was an adjustment. The state finally allowed us to adjust the rates. I think it had been 30 years since the last rate adjustment. So that's brought in more revenue, but we're cautious about what we anticipate because I don't know, that's when people are getting divorced or evicted lately, but that's what we're dependent on, people not paying bills, people getting evicted, people getting divorced, people getting sued.
Mr. Chisholm?
Thank you. Line by line, 63035 uniforms.
Contracted, there's 4 employees under the union contract, they have a clothing allowance.
Okay, and they haven't spent it in prior years, and it doesn't carry forward then?
It doesn't carry, right,
So each year they're allotted X amount of dollars to the budget, what the contract would, what they can spend up to.
Right, and
So
it,
we don't force them to go spend, we don't advertise it, but we have to have it.
sure, okay, I get that. So a question for the treasurer then. We had almost $1,400 left over in 2023 and close to $2,800 left over last year. Does that go into reserves or?
So let's remember that this is calendar year, so this is 2024 is to date.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so we don't,
Probably haven't submitted their.
And some will wait till like December 31st. to
Right.
do it, so.
okay, so hypothetically, if you don't spend this money, it goes into
Right? Yeah.
the fund balance. Okay, all right, thank you. Is there anything else big? I have a whole bunch of little potential savings. Automotive supplies, again,
Yep, that's your tires, which we're getting into the fall season, that's usually when they switch to the new tires.
that's already been cut by the commissioners by 50%. So, all right, not much room there. And service contracts, I guess those are fixed as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a motion? Go ahead, Kevin.
Eric, how are your fees, when was the last time your service fees were adjusted?
It was last year or the year before. So what it was this year we adjusted postage, but the state limits what you can charge. So we actually had to go through the legislative process to have it adjusted. It hadn't been adjusted in like 30 years. We did it through the Sheriff's Association, and our rates went up a lot. But by law, they finally allowed us to. I think we were charging $21 for certain services, and now it's like $45.
Yeah.
So when I say a lot, that's what kind of got us over the hump with meeting revenue lines that they always anticipated. But it's statutorily, here's what you can charge. There are some that the commissioners have the ability to adjust. I don't know what they all are. We did that with the commissioners the year before with what they could adjust. They did adjust. And then this year we adjusted the postage from $1 to $3. But pennies add up. So some are regulated by legislature, some the commissioners have the ability to adjust. Yep. And they've asked, I think, since I've been sheriff, we've done that twice. But it's limited.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget as presented.
And all seconds, all in favor? Anyone opposed? That motion carries 12-0. All right, the next is the public safety. Mr. Chisholm?
security services, both a revenue and an expenditure. I think in your notes you said that was a wash.
It is.
And we're looking at a $20,000 revenue and a $5,000 expenditure. How's that a wash? I love it, but.
So, we budgeted $5,000, but we've actually done more details, which are reimbursed to us. So we charge $100 an hour, minimum 4 hours. The deputy gets 75, the rest goes to the county. So all of that gets brought back to the county.
So like we get highway safety grants, or when we work baseball games, or traffic details, or like Livermore Barnyard. But we have to have a budget line to, pay the people, then we bill out. So at one point in time, it was like 25,000, it was just always 25,000, and then somebody said on the budget committee, said, well, that could be 5,000, and it would amount to the same, and it would. So they lowered it to 5,000. Because you have to have, generally, everybody's pretty good about paying, within 30 days. But you have to have some money in there. And the grants we get, different seasons, whether they're speed, record ticket, saturation patrols, roadblocks. But that's how they're all.
I think so far we've brought in almost 22,000.
Okay.
And we signed more this morning. So if you spend it, and we have employees willing to work the details, we generally ask for more.
Okay.
We've been short-handed for a little while, so we've, filling shifts sometimes. You don't want to burn people out.
Thank you. Every one of these departments has software and hardware maintenance agreements. Are those all bundled so that you've got one agreement and you're just apportioning the cost by a department? Okay.
Is the records management by and large.
All right, thank you.
I do have a question about the public safety line. What is included in that 52,000?
Public safety line?
Yeah, it's 70160.
So, those are, we have purchased tasers, and we did a 5-year finance. So, one is in payment 4 of 5, and the other one is payment 2 of 5. And also partial payment, we have to upgrade our mobile data terminals. And that's the progression of funding is coming, and this was to complete the project.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Galea?
What kind of capital would you need money for, because you had 5,000 and now you have 0?
That was the, so we were starting a reserve account, so if we needed to get like radars or tasers down the road, that sort of item, there would be a pot of money that we could just spend from. The commissioners have addressed that this year with ARPA funds, so they use that actual line, so.
So we're looking to create an account for it, and like radar guns specifically, all of a sudden you get buy 2, get 1 free. That's the time to buy. But you don't want to budget to buy radar guns every year. We replace them sporadically. But the commissioners do use ARPA, just provide us money for all that.
So my question would be, if somebody mistakenly drops a radar gun and it breaks, how do you replace it?
We have an account for repairs to equipment.
So it would come out of a repairs account, a separate account altogether. All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Would anybody like to make a motion? All right, as presented for expenses and revenues, all right, Mr. Reed, is there a second?
I'll second.
Paula on the second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries 12-0. All right, the next is survivor compensation.
It's a survivor benefit to a former police spouse.
Go ahead.
This is no longer I don't know what word to use, it's certainly not a benefit, but a recognition. Once this particular survivor benefit has been paid, there will no longer be any others because it's covered by insurance or.
The survivor gets paid for this for the rest of her life.
Right, okay, so not to be too blunt about it, but when she dies,
It goes away.
it goes away and there will not be any coming back.
Well, unless somebody else dies in line, do anything.
Well, I don't certainly want that, but I thought I heard you say during the commissioner's review that this was now going to be covered under some kind of insurance or, okay, all right. Thank you.
Make a motion, we accept it as presented.
Kevin and Mr. Reed, and all in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries 12-0. All right. Next is communications.
And before you get to it, the $20,000 that was eliminated in his budget, same idea, we were saving up for consoles, things like that, radios, whatever, but they wanted some financial relief this year, and that was pretty much the reason the project was. Didn't even jump ahead, but.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Before we get into your budget, I'm wondering if we should consider making a recommendation to the commissioners to reestablish some of these reserve, or at least look at the idea of building these reserve accounts. I can see the value to do them. I see what it costs to bond it and the rates. You know, we're fortunate now with a decent bond market, but it doesn't take much for that to just go the other way.
During the comment, and not in defense of the commissioners, but just as part of the consideration was, through ARPA, they bought us a lot of capital equipment, consoles this year. So their comment was, we're gonna take it out, bring it back next year. My experience is once something's removed from a budget, you know, our ARPA was a blessing and a curse, because we were sitting here literally telling the budget committee, if you take everything out, we're not, you're gonna have to deal with all the other increases as well as the huge capital amount increases. I understand why they did what they did this year because of the situation the jail's in. I can't really argue against it. But I am in agreement with you. I hate kicking the can down the road. And there's been several areas where we've tried to establish, whether it's capital accounts or accounts like they're trying to establish with the unemployment. We wanted one for when people retire and the buyout cost there, because right now there's no lines for that, or to sell vacation time back. Or your son's a police officer. We did interviews today. We just lost an employee, you know, we got a $37,000 check in the mail, but how much is it gonna cost to replace these people? Right. Take it out of overtime lines, salary lines, whatever. It'd be nice to have accounts for that, but I don't think that was looked at this year. Although it's, we mentioned it in, you know, amongst us that it would be valuable.
So I guess my question to the budget members, how would you feel about, should we put a suggestion or recommendation to commissioners to look into reestablishing reserves?
I would support that simply because it could carry over year to year. Once you get to a number, whatever number that's decided, you know, it may never go any further. It's not a thing you add to every year. If there's some way to put it in an account that once it's established, and we know that A, B, and C can come from that account, should there be a shortfall or a need for it, then I think that's a good idea to have a little kitty, like, you know, so we not walk off a cliff. You know, I'd rather go down a bank and it could be steep, but I don't want to walk off a cliff.
Well, in the years prior, just because Reese and I taught, like, when I was in the interim county administrator's role, you had somebody in general government retire, and you literally couldn't afford to replace the person for, it was an extended period of time. And it was all because of, you know, when you retire through mainstay retirement, you get extra vacation time, this, that, and the other, well, your salary line's fixed. But yet when people retired prior to the charter, so when it was just 3 commissioners and a clerk, the county commissioners had a line somewhere to cover those expenses. So, you know, Marty retires today and it doesn't affect me because the commissioners have a line to, so I agree with you wholeheartedly that, you know, the commissioners should probably have a line in a budget for all of those things, so it doesn't have to be budget independently with each department. And you're gonna see that next week, Mr. Reed.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more of that, because I would love to be getting 3% in the money market locally than paying 7% on a bond. There's just, sometimes there's a disconnect in municipal
And we've been trying to do it with cars, because we have a fleet of 38 cars. And what we've been doing is trying to get the leftovers, and it's taken a lot longer than I thought. And eventually, you know, you'll be there, because the finance charges, I mean, last year, I think the interest rates were what people were paying on the market, which I thought government got a deal, but that just didn't happen when we financed cars last year. And it affects everything, you know, the payment's just like a movie.
Thank you.
So, I've made some notes, and when we present our final budget to the commissioners, I will add that in there. Yeah, I will do that, yep.
I mean, I guess we want to ask everybody how they feel, but.
Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinarily, I would be very much in favor of establishing reserve accounts for this purpose, but unfortunately, I think that looking at 11% increase overall this year as we recover from the overfeeding on the ARPA funds, this year may not be the time to do that, to set aside money from the tax base to create reserve accounts for future expenditures. In principle, I think it's a great idea, and I love getting interest rather than paying interest. But I think this year, because of the additional requirements on the jail from the state and the fact that we're recovering from having that influx of ARPA money, the timing is not right from my perspective.
I think where we were standing was just a recommendation for future use, not to put any money aside right now.
Okay, maybe I'm jumping the gun again to next week, but okay, all right.
There are some reserve accounts that we will look at as part of the budget, but not creating some new ones. This is just in lieu of potential new ones for next year. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so back to the communications budget. Do you have anything you would like to talk about?
I kept it just as high as I could keep it. Pretty much what you're looking at is contractual obligation.
Got everything he asked for except for communications.
Contract for software, licensing. About it.
The revenue side of it is all someplace else. That's the issue.
Go ahead.
My question is actually on the revenue. I noticed in other budgets, there's a pretty good breakdown. Can you give us an idea of what the sources of, what makes up this revenue? I mean, where that comes from?
Revenue is we provide 911 services to all in the county, with the exception of Lewiston, Auburn, and Bowling Fire. We provide dispatch services to all in the county, with the exception of Lewiston, Auburn, Bowling Fire, and Lisbon as a whole, we'll just say. And we had the capacity to assist towns in Kennebec County for 911 services. They were told by their provider that I think it was Somerset County, no longer doing it. So we took them on to see, you know, if they're analyzing their cost best, wherever it comes. They pay at a higher rate than the in-county. So the in-county rate is a per capita charge for 911, per capita charge for police dispatch, per capita charge for fire dispatch for all communities. The 911 rate we charge to these Kennebec County towns is at a higher rate because they're outside. And I can't say that is a long-term revenue stream, but we've had it now for 2 years, 2.5 years. Let's say what the reasons are.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Mr. Chittum?
Earlier this year, you were down 2 employees. Have those positions been filled, and are they included in the budget?
So earlier this year, actually, we had 4 employees, and I have one person starting tomorrow, one starting next week. We have 2 more people in the background process. And yes, each one of those positions basically at one point.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I make a motion, we accept it as.
All right, Mr. Glenn first,
Second.
Mr. Chittum second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries 12-0. Thank you. Twin County Extension Service is up next.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Well, thank you. Nice meeting some of you and seeing some of you again.
Oh, I did it to be a spelling error.
Is it cold in here?
I forgot my glasses, so I got sunglasses. It's not like I'm trying to block you out, but I will be able to read.
Yeah. We're still trying to find your tab here, hold on. One of us can find it. You got it? That's it. Oh, no, that's not the same thing. Oh, it's under the Andros Saginaw Extension.
Yeah,
Essentially.
the
That's
water
where it's under.
source.
Okay, so sorry. Oh, wait, go.
Change the name on us.
Hello, my name is Jess Honeywell. I'm the president of the Androscoggin and Saginaw Counties Extension Association. As you may know, the Extension Office in Lisbon Falls provides a wealth of educational information and programming in Androscoggin County, including 4-H youth development, Master Gardener volunteers, Merry Meeting and Androscoggin Gleaners, New Farmer Support, Farm Business Management, and Homemakers Program. Guided by Lynn Holland, horticulture professional, Master Gardener volunteers in Androscoggin and Saginaw counties contributed more than 2,300 hours in 2023. Their work included home garden hotline, gleaning, pollinator-friendly garden education, and physical work on garden projects throughout the county. Based on the independent sector estimate of $31.80 per hour, the value of that volunteer time was over $73,150. In addition, through the Maine Harvest for Hunger program, volunteers gleaned 66,400 pounds of food and distributed it to local people in need in Androscoggin and Saginaw counties. Laura Personette, 4-H youth development professional and community central program coordinator, supports long-term and short-term county-based club programs and programming at Lewiston Public Schools and other community locations. She is one of 6 4-H staff working out of the Androscoggin Saginaw office, supporting hundreds of youth locally and in regional and statewide capacities. Jason Lilly provides resources for farmers and landowners to encourage sustainable agriculture. In addition, he is our Maine maple specialist. He also provides safety training for farm families around tractor safety and participates in a farm workforce development program. In a recent letter to the commissioners, he wrote, "We know that maintaining our farm operations is essential to a vital local economy. The sales of local foods, wages paid, farm infrastructure development, and equipment maintenance are among the many ways that farms keep dollars in the local economy. Tax revenue from farms is significant. Additionally, the presence of working farms is an essential way to maintain open space and community culture and dynamics. Without these farms, land is likely to be developed or go back to forested land. Another major benefit of farms is their ability to support water quality by increasing previous surfaces for rainwater management and enhancing the environmental quality of our communities. Recognizing the essential benefits of our farms and the numerous economic challenges that are putting their continuation at risk, it is now more than ever that the services of the University of Maine Cooperative Extension and our partner agencies are needed. The funding from Saginaw County pays for support staff and maintenance of the office at 24 Main Street in Lisbon Falls. Salaries and benefits for all program staff, as well as funding for the programs themselves, continue to come through the University of Maine. The county support we request from you ensures the continuation of our programs in your community. This funding, based on the Smith-Lever Act of 1914 and the County's Extension Act of 1985, brings university resources directly to the residents of Androscoggin and Saginaw counties. The ASCEA uses the funding from the counties and the university to match and leverage support from the United States Department of Agriculture, other federal grantors, state agencies, and private agencies. At this time, we are hoping the Budget Committee will approve what the Commissioners have endorsed for our funding request for the fiscal year 2025, and we appreciate your continued support.
Are there any questions? All right, Mr. Chair?
I will move approval of the budget as presented.
I heard Mr. Bieber, second, and all in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, that carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Androscoggin Valley Soil.
How's it going?
name is Emma LaRusso. I'm the project director at the Androscoggin Valley Soil and Water Conservation District.
I'm Sarah Torres, I'm the technical director at Andy Valley Soil and Water Conservation District.
So you should have our stuff in front of you. I don't want to go over things that you have already read, but a couple of new things that have happened since the writing of this report. We have been working on watershed management, as you'll see in the first bullet on our report, and we worked to file a couple of grant applications through the Clean Water Act, one for Thompson Lake, which is in Poland, and also some other counties as well, but we'll be managing that project for the next 2 years, and we were accepted. Our application was approved, and we also were approved for Taylor Pond as well, which is in Auburn. So those combined, that will be bringing in approximately $184,000 into the counties, or into the county. And that also doesn't count for the match that we need. It's a federal grant, so you probably are familiar, you need a lot of match, and so that collectively is gonna be about almost $350,000 over the next 2 years that will be spent for watershed management or watershed improvement. We also are working towards another application for the Wright Pond system, and that will hopefully be approved for 2026. So we'll apply next year, and we're well on our way to forming that application. Sarah is new. She's new. She's been here for about a year, and we have seen a lot of increase in the need for technical assistance, a lot more rain, a lot more issues concerning erosion, and so we're super happy to have another staff member on our team. And we also hired an intern for the summer, so we have been improving the amount of people. We're increasing our staff and doing everything that we can to support the county.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Mr. Glenn?
You asked for 17,000, you got 14. Why did you want 17?
Yeah, so we haven't received an increase in 7 years. We have increased our staff, and we're hoping to potentially hire another person in the next year or two. So we thought that, you know, a small increase over 7 years wasn't too much to ask.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Oh, Mr. Reed?
So Saginaw also contributes to this, is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
And have you made the same request to them, and what was their answer?
We will. Their budget meeting happens in February. We will be asking for an increase from them as well. Yep.
Are there any other questions? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion?
I will move increasing this from 14,000 to 17,000 back to the original request.
I would second that.
All right, Mr. Schitterman, a second by Mr. Gallant. All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, so that is 11 and 1. That does not carry.
Why? We have 12 people.
Oh, you're sorry. You are correct. It's 11 we need. Yeah, that does carry.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, thank you. Next up is Western Maine Transportation.
Good evening. Craig Zerhurst, Community Relations Manager for Western Maine Transportation Services. We're the public transit provider for Androscoggin, Franklin, and Oxford counties. We also operate services in Brunswick and in Bath. Western Maine Transportation has been having tremendous success providing additional workforce transit within Androscoggin County, along with the regular demand response services that we've been providing here for years. We had requested $47,000 during the process with commissioners. They've asked us to remain flat funded, and we are okay with that. It's not optimal, but we accept that that's necessary if that is also your will. The beauty of any of the money that we receive from the county is that it is also eligible to be used as local match, and it draws down roughly 45% local, 55% federal. So if we were to use the $47,000 figure, it would have drawn down an additional $57,444. Flat funded, it's somewhat less, but the amount that we bring in obviously helps offset the operating costs, and then it also is able to be applied for local match. Because of the work we've done in workforce, because of the county's funding last year, we were able to attract an additional $20,000 grant from the Elmina Sewell Foundation. My understanding is there may be another grant, possibly even more, that will be coming our way. But thank you for your past support, and I would be glad to answer any questions without dragging on my presentation.
Mr. Glenn?
He had his hand up first, so
Oh, sorry. I didn't see it.
I would like to know the actual difference between 47K and 45K, as far as, you know, is it $10,000 different? What am I getting for my $2,000?
Well, it's obviously every dollar counts for everybody these days, but that again is going to be amplified to be about another $3,000 that we would get in matching funds. So it's not just the amount that we get from the county, it's what it attracts from the feds as well.
All right, thank you.
It's a great question, thank you.
Can you explain the demand response?
Certainly. You pick up the phone, you call, and we arrange a time to pick you up if you have that need. This can range from dialysis to people who can't access the CityLink bus here or don't have a CityLink bus. Let's say they're in Sabattis. We're able to get to portions of Sabattis, Minot, Mechanic Falls, Poland, and we're looking now, one of the things we're hoping to establish within the calendar year is daily transport between Oxford Hills and Lewiston, Auburn, but that will go through Poland, again, increasing service there, Minot, Mechanic Falls. These are all incremental steps that have been part of a transit plan and study that was started in 2018, has been updated, and we're working our way very methodically through those improvements, trying to become increasingly relevant and meaningful to the county.
Are any of those rides on the demand response reimbursed by MaineCare?
No, that's a separate thing altogether. We're getting very few MaineCare rides these days. The broker, Motive Care, is using predominantly volunteers and cabs, and even some of their own vehicles to meet those needs. We do get some, and to answer your question in a more detailed way, our agency vehicles are funded under the same funding that would, but not the operation, if that makes any sense. Okay.
Been around too long.
Well, we're very fond of saying what we do, moving people, is simple, but how it gets done is not. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Are there any other questions?
A motion for the 45,000?
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. That was Dennis? Okay. And all in favor?
Thank you for your support.
You're welcome. And that carries 12-0.
And if you become aware of any transit needs in your communities, please feel free to reach out to us at any time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will be talking to them about
Herzog, is that?
He's the guy.
Good, okay.
Not through LATC.
Hi, good evening. Amy Landry, Executive Director of APCOG. I believe you have in your packet, hopefully, our information, so I won't go through this all for you today, but just to remind you, we are a regional planning organization. We do cover all of Androscoggin, all of Franklin, and the majority of Oxford County. We do provide services in the areas of economic development, planning, transportation planning, and environmental management, a variety of different programs and services. The dues request we had before the commissioners, a little close to $8,200, primarily is to match federal and state grants, which is the majority of our budget, or to provide direct technical assistance to our member municipalities. That's in a variety of ways that we do that, a lot associated with grants and technical assistance around planning and land use issues. We do have a few different initiatives that I highlighted in your packet this year. One being the Regional and Tribal Broadband Partners Program, which we are specifically only serving Androscoggin County residents with that program. We did hire this year a full-time digital navigator who is working throughout the county to provide digital equity services. So that could be anything for somebody who doesn't have access to a device to get access to a device, somebody who can't afford to be connected to the internet to get them affordable connectivity, or to provide somebody with the skills needed to operate a device. So I need a job, I don't have a device, how do I do that? How do I apply for a job? So that is one of the newer programs that we're offering this year, and that's in partnership with the Maine Connectivity Authority. The Community Resilience Partnership is another fairly new program for us. It's under the Governor's Office of Policy Innovation in the Future, where we are working with communities to engage them into thinking about resilience and sustainability within their communities. So there are a lot of opportunities that the state has to fund projects. What we help communities do is enroll into the partnership. We help them plan around what those priorities might be, identify projects, and help them pursue grants to fund their projects. So, you know, I've here detailed just what we've done in the last year within the county within that program. The Housing Opportunity Program, again, that's a fairly new program. There's a Housing Opportunity Office out of the Department of Economic and Community Development at the state. We've worked with them to essentially over the last couple of years, it's been all in compliance with LD 2003, which required increased density in communities and the addition of accessory dwelling units. So many of our very small municipalities do not have the capacity to look at ordinances, update their ordinances to comply with the law. So our planning staff spent several months and weeks working with communities to get them in compliance with the law. But then also to look at it on a more comprehensive approach to what our issues are with housing. What are our regional priorities when we're looking at housing? So we're getting into that at this level going forward. So we're working with communities on their, everybody is updating their comprehensive plan. That is a big part of what we are able to do is work with communities through their comp plan process to look at transportation, all of it. But housing obviously is a big priority for all of our communities. So we're spending a lot of time in that area. And then the last thing I would just highlight is the Regional Recovery Implementation Hub Program. That is a technical assistance and grant program for businesses who started during the pandemic. We were asked by the state to deploy funds to these businesses who were not eligible for PPP. They were not eligible for EIDL. But they were started during that time and did have some impacts because of it. So just in the last, I think we rolled out the program in April, over $285,000 of grants were given to businesses in Androscoggin County. We've done more outside of Androscoggin County, but in Androscoggin County alone. So those are kind of the newer issues and programs. The budget, our total dues for all of our members including all three counties, which Franklin and Oxford are members, and municipalities, is $269,000 out of a $5 million budget. Seems like a small number, but it's very important dollars for us because it does help us bring federal and state resources to this area. And it provides technical assistance directly to our municipalities.
First of all, are Franklin and Oxford counties still supporting your budget in their process this year?
Yes.
Okay. As a resident of Minot, we rely on your services tremendously. I have been a very large, proponent of your services, and, I would, just like to caution folks here that I know the commissioners feel that your organization doesn't necessarily do anything from a county perspective, but I think the amount of money that what little is being asked for does help to support us as smaller municipalities, because we pay dues to you as well, and if this helps keep those dues down. This small amount, if it goes away, will increase on our smaller community side, probably by much more than what we'd see with the funding formula. So I would encourage those of you here to really think about what is being pulled here and the benefits that this organization provides to our smaller communities.
I think that tails on what I was gonna ask, and my question is more to Jeff than yourself, so I apologize. But did the county commissioners give any other indication of why they made that decision? And is it possible where we know the commissioner's amount, that maybe on some of these, we have a note page that explains what the commissioner's decision was? I unfortunately don't have enough time to go to all their meetings and see the kind of, making the
So
spaghetti.
to answer your question backwards, yes, I can do that for you, and I believe in this case, it was to get the budget down, everybody was going to take some hit. Right?
Some hit, zero is.
Right. Mr. Nichols?
I went through and I checked online and accessed the county commissioner's minutes for meetings for at least 3 years. And under AvCog, no report, no report, no report. It was continuous. We tax our citizens to death. I think if municipalities want to be a member and people can take advantage of AvCog services that way, they're more than welcome to. Where the commissioners, I'll echo what they said. It's kind of double dipping in my opinion, and I would not support funding AvCog.
If I can just comment on the no report. By being a county member, you are automatically given a seat on our executive committee, our board, our policy board. And the county has failed to be a member, come to a meeting, so.
Right. They're not using the services. They have no plans to use the services. We've budgeted $25,000 in the last 3 years that we've taxed our citizens for literally no services.
Well, all the services that we provide do benefit all the residents of Androscoggin County, and that
Correct.
we do. And if they're not participating in our board meetings to know what we're doing, it's hard to be involved. We cover 54 communities. I can't go to every commissioner's meeting to talk about the programs that we offer. They have a seat on our board. They designate somebody to come to board meetings who doesn't come. So if they don't come, they can't give a report.
It sounds like they don't have an interest in belonging, in my opinion.
We do have a new member, Andrew, who has come to his first board meeting. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Ms. Landry, this is a very specific amount, 8197 that you requested. Can you explain how that comes to be?
So our assessments are provided by their evaluation and population and a factor for county, so it's a formula. It's a formula that is every December, it goes through the formula, and the dues are what they are at the end of the day.
Okay, and would that the formula is based on population?
And valuation.
And
for
valuation.
towns, there's a factor applied.
Okay, I'm very much inclined to move that we restore that amount, but I hear what my colleague has said about double dipping. So I'm wondering if the formula is based on valuation and population, then doesn't each municipality, if you added up all of the municipalities in Androscoggin County, would they come to this 8197?
No. So each municipality is being assessed by their population and their valuation. There's a formula for that.
Right.
For counties, it's the same formula with a factor applied. That was,
So the factor makes the difference?
yes.
Okay, all right. I did also want to ask you, this $8,200 leverages how much money in federal money?
Oh, well, in federal money, I'd have
You-
to.
Or any kind of money? You gave us
Well,
a
if
number,
you-
and I
yeah,
thought
so
it was,
if you look at our revenues, for this past 24 budget, it's 269 out of our $5.1 million budget. The rest of our budget is federal or state funding.
so would it be fair to say that
.000.
that ratio represents the leveraging effect of this request?
Yes.
That's a huge factor.
Yes.
That alone makes me think that we ought to, in fact, I'm going to, unless there are other questions, then I will move that we restore the,
Question on the end?
I'm sorry.
You raised a good question, but I want to ask it in a different manner. If you don't get any money from the county, if this is zero, the way the commissioner did it, does it affect your ability or the amount you receive from any other entity?
It would affect
Would
the.
they reduce it in other ways?
Well, it would affect the ability we have to match other federal funds. I can't specifically say, if we don't have 8,000, we're gonna lose a state contract. We use those are the only unrestricted dollars we have. Every other dollar we receive as an organization is restricted to the program that we're offering. The 4 programs I gave you, those are restricted. They have a scope of work, they have a budget specific to those programs. So when we're trying to access federal funds and we need to provide a 20% cash match or cost share, those are the dollars that we're using.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so 296,000, right, but I can't tell you that it will affect this particular program, you know.
I'm good with that.
So $296,000 is what we have unrestricted to match those programs. Everything else is restricted to the program, just if you're on our federal transit funds we receive strictly for the CityLink bus system, that's all we can use it for. So every program that we operate is restricted, and that is the only dollars that we have that are unrestricted.
Yes, I would move that we restore the $8,197 amount requested.
Second it, yep.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? That's 10 and 2, that doesn't carry. So it'll stand at 0, we can take that to the commissioners and have a discussion with them.
Yep.
about the final. Okay. Thank you. The Historical Society?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Before we start on that, I'd like to ask the committee its opinion. I have been very active in the Historical Society over the years. I have been the president, I have been the treasurer. I am still a member, although I no longer have any board of director capabilities or involvement with the operation of the AHS. And I'm wondering if the committee feels that I should recuse myself from this.
What is everybody's thoughts on that?
Are you on the board now?
No.
I have no issue with that whatsoever.
I'm fine with that, if you're not on the board.
Not on the board, no issue.
Thank you. All right.
The disclosure is out, so.
Hey there.
Good evening, I'm Becky Conrad. I'm here to support the Historical Society as a consultant. Marty Shabbat. So the Androscoggin Historical Society is a 501c3 nonprofit service agency to the 14 county towns and beyond our Androscoggin County by providing research, a research library, archives with photographs, artifacts, maps, a primary genealogy resource with deeds and records. It's used by K-12 schools, homeschoolers, college students for local history, and numerous personal and professional research inquiries from around the state, as well as the nation and even internationally, asking specifically about primary source work coming out of Androscoggin County. We also own and operate the West Auburn Schoolhouse, and we manage and preserve the Night House in Auburn down by Great Falls. You probably know, or certainly the commissioners know, that we were a tenant in this building from 1936 until 2022. So we were on the third floor of this building. And if you have visited the third floor of this building, it's not the easiest place to find. So in 2021, the board purchased 93 Lisbon Street, which is next to the courthouse on Lisbon Street, and undertook a $750,000 fundraising campaign for the purchase, the relocation, and the first 3 years of operation. So it was an amazing increase in visibility for the organization, with a lot of intentionality behind that move, but also an increase in expenses. The operations now include 3 days a week being open to the public, part-time staff, a far more robust volunteer program, increased year-round programming with lectures, a Civil War roundtable, book talks, activity in, there's a lecture tonight, or there was last night, on a local author. We have children's programming in all 3 locations to grow future support for the importance of the history of this community, and we are participants in all of the art walks in downtown Lewiston, drawing 75 to 100 folks on those Friday nights to grow general support. So the entire initiative to increase visibility has been very successful, and the space allows for a curated gallery and rotating exhibitions. We are drawing the general public in, so we're part of the county's tourism industry. So all the way around, the move out of the third floor, while we miss being in this building, has met the obligation to be a more robust organization for the county. The request, as you know, because you have Marty Shabbat's letter as the board chair in your packet, is the same funding requested and approved last year, $15,000. That is toward a $130,000 annual budget. $10,000 has already been committed from the city of Auburn. There's a $15,000 request being submitted to the city of Lewiston, and they have supported us in the past. Some of our town historical societies do support us. We've started a business sponsor program. We have now an annual fund, so individual donations are increasing, and we have undertaken grant writing, and that's the work I'm helping the society do, is to start to activate a robust fundraising program. The county's support is a signal to our residents of our community that history matters, and that we are a repository of the county's history, and that it's available and will be actually more available as the organization can become more sophisticated as a primary resource for research worldwide through the internet. So we would very much appreciate your support. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Jim?
I'll have to ask a leading question. Are you the only historical society that covers Androscoggin County?
There are, as we know, 14 towns, and some of the towns have their own historical societies, not all of them. We are the County Historical Society, so a repository for county records would come to this historical society. Lewiston and Auburn individually do not have historical societies. They have, there's the Franco collection, there are multiple collections like, but there is no city-wide. I do think sometimes people assume, speaking personally, that we may be the Lewiston or Auburn Historical Society, which is why we do go to those towns to ask for significant support, but we are the only county historical society.
Thank you.
Does the Lewiston Auburn College still have the Franco historical?
They do, and it's actually, I don't know if you know that that campus is, with the new president at the University of Southern Maine, is getting a lot of attention to come back to be a much more vibrant campus, and I'm not sure, I don't think it's under wraps, but the Osher Map Library is bringing a satellite location to be a partner with that Franco collection, so that will become an even more significant part of the assets we have for history locally.
Are there any other questions? Is there a motion?
Uncomfortably, because of my prior association, I will move that we restore the $15,000 that was requested by Androscoggin Historical Society.
Second. All in favor? All opposed? That does not carry. We had 4.
One abstained. One abstained.
Three.
One abstained.
3 opposed, 1 abstained.
Yeah, 1 abstain, sorry, I missed the abstain.
So, Madam Chair, a note will go back to the commissioners.
That'll go back to the commissioners.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate you considering. We hope that we can demonstrate that we are a robust organization that supports the county in different ways than maybe the other organizations do. So you may see us next year. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question. Previously, we talked about bringing something back to this table. If we had more than 11 we do today, can we review that?
That was on my next to do, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Lance question, if you guys could turn to your meeting minutes from last week to look at the EMA budget, or your paperwork, whichever you want to do. Last week, on the EMA budget, we had a vote of 10 to 1 that did not pass to increase several line items. So to increase the training and education from $1,200 to $2,500, which was an increase of $1,300. Training and exercise from $1,200 to $2,500. Maintenance from 0 to 1,000, and equipment from 0 to 800. So the new line item would have been $258,063. That did not pass, and we would like to have an open discussion to discuss that line item, put it up to a vote. Mr. Grant, do you have any other questions about that? I know you.
No, I don't. I'd make a motion that we approve that budget as amended.
258,063?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is there a second on that?
Second.
I'm sorry, was that Susan? Yeah. And all in favor? All right, and all opposed, I believe that still does not carry. Okay, so. And the second item was on the district attorney, the joint budget. There was a discussion to increase the lodging from $4,000 to $6,500, which was a $2,500 increase, and also the dues from $4,000 to $4,400, making that line item $21,000 instead of $18,100. Would anybody like to discuss that further, or any other questions on that? I will make a motion to approve the expenditures of $21,000. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Mr. Chittum, all in favor? All opposed? Right, that does not carry.
Yep.
You want in favor or opposed?
All right, you want opposed, okay. Sorry.
Okay, so Captain Nichols, Sally, Leroy Walker, and then.
All right, that takes care of the 2 line items that we were outstanding.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our schedule of events this evening.
Second.
And we have Reed and Paula, all in favor? Yeah, no one's winning. All right, thank you, folks. We'll see you next week. There's a whole bunch of beer. That's okay.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Go see the surgeon next week. Going back to cut some meat.
So I'll put that on your notes too.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we'll bring it up.
I know you do.
It's like, I'll leave it and yeah, it's like. I don't know about
Thank you, dear.
that.
Good job.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Good.
Good to see you, Sue. How are you, sir? Well, basically this,
I don't want to
let's see.
speak out of my ass here, but I think we're looking at the prior law, this one supersedes it.
Okay,
So I remember as a jail administrator, we could go up to the 4%, but we never
yeah,
did.
yeah,
Back then. I thought
right.
that was.
I don't mind the question.
All right,
Now,
let
we're
me,
not the only county that's doing this, but now,
Yeah.
we're like the 5th county. We did, we are good that we held out the most before we had to do it.
there's jail. All right, what,
We took care
you wanna grab a seat?
But, thanks, Sandy, we'll be talking.
Okay, all right, sure.
It's a long meeting tonight. We're usually Sure. In and out in 10 minutes. I asked a couple questions and I leave.
Good for you.
It's like, no, this is the whole, this is to do.
Hey, can you, I didn't realize you're on the Board of Appeals, can you appeal an administrative decision from the city clerk in a licensing issue?
Okay.
No, you weren't.
It's pretty much land use code, is that one of them? I gotta have a chat with Brian. Well, I'm gonna talk to Brian, because he's the one that said, no, the homeless shelter ordinance